talk show is brought to you by...
Hey, want to feel young again? Are you tired, run down, have aches and pains, brain fog? This is science-based, not hype or fancy marketing. It really works. Carbon 60 helps detoxify your body on the cellular level. It stabilizes free radicals, just like the antioxidants found in red wine and berry stew, but on a far smaller, more bioavailable nanoscale. It's like a bottle of electrons, helping your body to function better. You can also apply it on your skin topically, over muscles, joints, or organs. Most people feel results within minutes. This is not a drug. It's organic carbon. Feel better today. About 95% of our users report more energy and clarity of mind within 10 days. Give us a call at Gruska's Carbon 60 at 720-600-6040 or visit our site at c-60.com. Call 720-600-6040 and feel young again.
Welcome back to the iHealth channel, iHealth Radio, with your host, Hurricane H. New day, new show, awesome topic, a topic of life, topic of, just how to cope with things and potentially get better. And we all can use some of that. And it's not enough discussion. And no matter how many times we listen to this topic, we can just use more of it because it keeps us in check. And every story comes in with some more validity to us and hopefully get us into the right direction. No matter what we're going through in life, I think it's always an important piece to recheck sometimes. And my guest today is going to give us a whole bunch of that stuff, as he is a life coach. But not only he is a life coach, he's also someone who's been to the extreme and back, and in every shape and form that you probably could imagine. And you're probably going to be like, what the hell is Hurricane talking about today? But you will find out in a minute. So without any further ado, I have with me Daniel Spencer. Daniel, welcome to the show.
Hey, okay. Thanks a lot for having me. Appreciate it.
Oh, no, my pleasure, man. My pleasure. And, I'm looking forward to today. And because your story is again, another unique story. I mean, you don't hear this stuff every day. And your struggles and what you had to go through and got you where you are today. And not only that, you're helping people today. And I always admire people who have gone through, and I think everybody's probably gone through some level of hardship in their lives. Sometimes, they keep it to themselves. Some they take that and bring it back to the surface and share with others. So they can hopefully help, the rest of us, not fall in the same place or maybe avoid getting through that same process that is very hard, brutal, just not in a good place to be. So Daniel, let's talk about you first, your story and how it all started before you even became a life coach. And you are actually, you have a specialty that is dangerous. So we're going to talk about all that and everything that happened to get you to where you are today.
Yeah, let's get into it.
All right, it's all yours, man. So give us the good stuff. Where did it start and how bad it got before you got to today?
So I think when it all started, so first of all, by trade, I'm a power lineman. I specialize in splicing high, low voltage cables in the underground utility. And that started, I've been doing that for almost 20 years. I'm going to be there 20 years. And kind of before that, it was just kind of lost. I grew up and my parents divorced when I was in junior high school, and not having somebody there, like the house just broke apart. My dad was a blue collar worker. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. And once they split up, my dad left and my mom had to work 2 jobs. And I just kind of found myself alone and seeking comfort in, not the best people with the best habits. And I started getting into marijuana use really when I was about 13, and went through high school, had a bunch of friends, but still had a whole lot of self-doubt because I gained weight. Growing up, I was a chubby kid, second string on the football team, low self-confidence. People would talk crap, so I would try and always make jokes, if they're gonna laugh with me, they won't laugh at me first, type of deal. And that kind of got me into trouble in school. And after high school, I just kind of always kept that vice of drinking and smoking weed and not being able to really land a good job right after high school. I lost the motivation for college, like in my junior year, from just being finding the comfort in marijuana. Right? It just totally killed my ambition. And my uncle, who was in the power line trade, he showed me an opportunity to take a class after hours. And so I went, my cousin, my brother, and I. We would go every Wednesday or Thursday night, once a week, and we'd go to downtown LA and sit in this class that made us eligible for a test with the city. So we did it and took the test, and then I just kind of did the same thing, right? Dead end jobs. And then after 2 years, I finally got a call, and they said, "Hey, we want to hire you for the position as a groundman." So I did that, and the marijuana use stopped right away because I had to hold a commercial driver's license. But up to that point, I was selling weed. Uh, Actually got me into some trouble. I almost went to jail for quite a long time. I was caught one night with a pound in my car. Ooh. And luckily, the cop that pulled me over, he gave me a chance. Right? And that was probably my first opportunity of really trying to change my life around. But 19 years old, hard-headed, didn't learn my lesson. I ended up going home that night. I didn't go to jail at all. I went home with a ticket for possession over an ounce. But like I said, I didn't learn my lesson, and I engaged in the same activities, the same habits. The drinking increased, but yeah, once I got hired with the city, it was different. I had met who was not my wife. I've been married 19 and a half years. I met my wife probably a year, 6 months before that, and that she was my guiding light. She gave me the purpose of what my life is now. We met right away, and right away we fell in love. And after maybe a year, she said, "I want to have your kid. I want to have a baby with you." And up to that point, I didn't want kids at all. I was like, "Why am I going to bring a kid into this life that I have no control over?" But when you're called into action from above, it takes over. And I muttered out uh, a mumbled yes, and that was it. She got pregnant, we got married, and at this point, I had just started my new career. And once I got hired and I had to give up the weed, the drinking increased. Right? The drinking increased, and the paychecks were good, so we'd eat out and indulge in foods and more alcohol for myself. And I started gaining a bunch of weight there. And over the course of about 3 or 4 years, I gained 100 pounds. I gained 100 pounds working there, dealing with stress and, like past pains in the most negative way, which is seeking comfort in food and alcohol. It took a huge toll on my relationship, on my job, which is physically demanding. And I promoted in the career. I promoted from a groundman to an apprentice, and it was close to the end of my apprenticeship in 2011, August 2011. I was electrocuted. I was electrocuted with 2,700 volts. I got third-degree burns on my leg, and it scared me. It scared me. I didn't want to go back to doing what I was doing, but I needed to complete this apprenticeship because of the pain increase. And I had a second child by then, my son. And there's ways to deal with it. Like we have therapies. We have an employee assistance program, which offers counseling and stuff for traumas, for anything. And I didn't take advantage of it. And I sought the comfort in more alcohol, which was, it was like a habit that I had seen growing up and a habit that was just easy to try and deal with it. And and after one night, I had this realization that this is going to ruin your life. I was at a Super Bowl party and I had my kids with me and I was drinking all day. And at the end of the night, instead of calling my wife to come pick us up, I drove home. I strapped the kids in the car, drove home. And I was sitting there in front of my house with another drink. And it just hit me, like, man, what are you doing? Um, my wife didn't work at the time. She was a stay-at-home mom. You have a good career. You have a beautiful, healthy family. And you're risking it every day because for what? Because you can't handle it's my self-control, first of all, my willpower. My confidence was low because now I was even more unhappy about myself, my weight, the way I looked, my performance at work. So the next day I checked myself into a substance abuse program. And that was 12 and a half years ago. So I've been sober 12 and a half years off of this realization and finally listening to my conscience, because I would tell myself all the time, man, you need to quit drinking. I'd wake up in the morning with a hangover, feel like crap, and full of regret and wondering what I said last night or why is my wife mad at me now? Because I would drink till I blacked out. And I'd find myself waking up in the middle of the living room floor with a warm beer can or, my half drinking mixer. So that was rough, and once I finally checked myself into this program, it was definitely eye-opening hearing some of the stories from the other people that were in there getting treatment. And I was like, man, some of these people are way off, way more worse off than you are. And like, I mean, I had to tell myself in there again, like, you're just being a punk. You're making all the excuses on why you can't lose weight, on why you can't stop drinking. So I did, and I changed my eating habits, and I lost about 60 pounds. Not even going to the gym, just because I was drinking so much. And once I would, you know, be drunk or have a good buzz, I'd want to eat something. I'd want a snack. I'd go to Jack in the Box or whatever drive-through was close. And those habits were even being a negative effect on my family, because now I'd bring home junk food for them. My wife was gaining weight, and it was just not healthy overall. But like I said, I lost some weight, and at least now I was sober. I was more present with my family and being able to remember what I said or what I did. And then so I promoted, I passed my apprenticeship. Now I'm a high voltage cable splicer journeyman, more responsibilities. And I mean, work was good. Paychecks were steady, but still I had this huge lack of confidence because my weight. Like I said, after I lost 60 pounds, I kind of gained some back because I was doing like a fad diet where I would starve myself through the day. Then I'd come home and gorge on all the food. So I ended up gaining some weight back. I was about 265 pounds for a few years. And when my wife and I were going to have our 15-year wedding anniversary, we had planned a really big party because when we first got married, we just eloped. There was nobody there. There was a few people there, but it was not what we had really envisioned. But we were in love, We just wanted to get married and be together. And so when we had our 15-year wedding anniversary, she says, "Look, if we're going to have this big old party, we both should look good. We should look good for our pictures. We should look good for our families." So we joined a weight loss boot camp, and I lost quite a bit of weight there. I lost about 80 pounds. I went from 260 to 180, 185 pounds. And she lost a significant amount of weight. And, the confidence was great. Looking better, you feel better. She same thing for her. And what I learned from there was, meal preparations, how to put together workouts. But what I really gained was the discipline, the discipline and the consistency. Because I would get up in the morning, I would get up at 3:15, 3 in the morning, go to the first gym session, which was at 4 o'clock, and then I'd go to work. I'd still work 9 hours, 12 hours, and meal prep and come home and do it all over again. It was a way, I mean, it was more exhausting sometimes, but the results from these habits that I had now put into my life it was a huge benefit. Because before, when I was drinking and I was overweight, I would have constant heartburn. My wife would tell me I would wake up in the middle of the night not breathing. And with a commercial license, you have to do a physical checkup every 2 years. And, the doctors were telling me, we're going to pull your license. You're too overweight. You're telling us you're waking up in the middle of the night. That's sleep apnea. But I would never go to the doctors and officially get anything said, yeah, you need a CPAP machine, or I would never get blood work. I would avoid the doctors because I knew that they were going to tell me all the bad news because of my health habits. So once my wife finally got us to that boot camp and we lost the weight, it was just a new way of life. It was a new way of life. That was my new addiction, really, was the workouts, the feeling, honestly, the feeling that you get once you think, man, I can't do it. I'm too tired. I'm too sore. But then you get up and you push yourself and you get through that workout and you have that sense of pride, a sense of accomplishment, right? It builds your confidence and you feel like nothing can bring you down. Working out early in the morning, you get the hardest part of your day done. You're not thinking about it the rest of the day, like trying to find a reason to talk yourself out of it. I'm too tired after work, or I have to go do this or run errands. Get up early, knock it out. And I still do that to this day, for that fact, and the fact that when I come home after work, my family needs me. My wife she's still a stay-at-home mom. Very blessed, very lucky that she doesn't have to work, and she puts in more work than I do sometimes. Every day. Honestly, I tell her that. There was been times where she would be sick, or like recently, she went on vacation to her friend's house for a week, and I had to stay home and drive the kids here and there and cook dinners and shopping and cleaning and laundry. Man, it's exhausting. And I give her the utmost respect and adoration every day. I try to tell her, baby, you're killing it. You're doing an awesome job. And so just over 2 years ago, I was in another work accident, and that's kind of where everything just turned. I was already on my health journey. I was building a good amount of muscle, and I was still at the gym that I had started with. I had been going there for, this is probably 3 years, going on 3 years, and I got in a work accident. And I didn't listen to my conscience again. I let my ego get in the way of what my conscience was telling me was right. We didn't follow certain work procedures, and the communication between my partner and I was non-existent. Total communication breakdown. And we ended up, it's called a cross phase, when you get two different power lines. So there's three of them. And when you put them together, and if they're the same, they flow just fine. But if you try and cross them, almost like the opposite sides of a magnet, right? They create that force. Well, the force, when you put these two different phases together, it's explosive. It just blows up. And that's what we did. It was a 6x8 little vault. And it burned me. It burned the hell out of me. The circuit breaker that we were working on failed instantly. So when the circuit was supposed to shut off within a fraction of a second, it didn't. It kept burning for 2 full seconds, which doesn't seem like a long time, but when the temperatures are reaching over 4,000 degrees and it's just melting porcelain and liquefying copper, it seems like a lifetime. In those 2 seconds, I was having these conversations in my head, asking myself questions like, why aren't you dropping down? Because I was standing up and it was about a foot from my face. And then I was thinking, like, why is this circuit not shutting off? And then I got to a certain point, in these very long 2 seconds, and I said, man, if this doesn't shut off soon, you're gonna die down here. And then right after I thought that, everything went black. The noise stopped, the white light stopped, and I was like, shit, this is it. And then I felt this burning in my chest, right, from all the smoke inhalation. And I was like, oh man, we're still here. We're still here. So I climbed out the hole and go to the hospital right away. And they send us to the burn ward. That's part of our procedures at work. If anybody gets burned, they send you to the emergency room first, whatever near the nearest hospital is, just to make sure you're stable, check your vitals. And then they sent us to the burn ward, and I went to the burn ward, and I showed up there, and the doctor says, okay, well, we're going to schedule you for some surgeries. We don't know how many, at least 2. And we don't know how long you're going to be here yet. But it ended up being, I was there for 10 days. I had 2 skin graft surgeries. I had 3rd-degree burns on my face. Basically all just here and a little bit on my neck. I had a full beard. I had long hair, and it just burned the whole beard away. The only thing that didn't get burned was right where my eyes are, because of my safety glasses. So that was sitting in the hospital room for 10 days was something on the mental, right? On my mental health, because I didn't have the support there of my wife full time because of COVID. This was February 27th, 2021. And the visiting hours were restricted because of COVID. And it was only limited to one person. And there was no way my wife was going to give that up every single day. She gave up 2 days of her visiting, one for my mom and one for my dad. But she wouldn't be able to show up until after 3 p.m. So the whole day is just me and my self-thought, my thoughts, my regret, my self-doubt, because I always thought I was a really safe worker. And here I am in the burn ward at the same hospital again. It just hit me as 10 years later, 2011 and 2021. It was 10 years later. And I'm like, man, why you didn't learn your lesson? Because when I first got into the first work accident, they were laying out the job, and the way that they were going to make this connection, I was thinking there's another better option, but that was my subconscious. But in my head, and the front of my brain was like, they're not going to listen to you. You're just an apprentice. And that's what I was most mad about, was because I didn't speak up, right? I didn't speak up on what I felt was right. And I struggled with that my whole life, having low level of self-confidence growing up as a teenager. I was just like, nobody's going to listen to you, or whatever it was. I think it was just a lack of confidence. And here I am again, 10 years later, with those same self-doubt. And I posted some of the photos to my Instagram page. My Instagram is Reps and Double Time, and I've had that for quite a while. I started that before my accident, just to show um, some workouts and to highlight the power line trade from the underground, because there's lots of pages out there that highlight, guys working on power poles and stuff like that, but not really much that focus on the underground work, which was my expertise. So I posted some photos on there, and it got reposted by one of the bigger Instagram pages in the trade. And right away, I started getting all these messages. Hope you feel better. People were asking questions about what voltage we were working on, how many layers of FR clothing we had on, what other types of PPE we had on, because we were wearing safety glasses, starting with that, face shield with the hard hat, 2 layers of arc rated clothing, which is supposed to help you in the case of arc flash, rubber gloves. So I was getting all these questions, and I answered every single one of them. Every single comment I would answer, and then I made a phone call to one of the other brothers that was there last night, and I kind of asked him, like, "Hey man, how's everybody doing?" He goes, it's pretty somber. Everybody's glad you guys are alive, first of all, but it just kind of sheds a whole new light on how quickly things can go bad. And he goes, man, because everybody always asks, like, Danny, like, Spencer got burned. Like, nobody would have imagined it, because, like I said, I was always trying to be the most safest guy. So it was hard for everybody else to believe, more than myself, I guess. But that's kind of when I had the realization, like, you can turn this into something positive, answering all these questions. You could really help the trade out. You can help everybody in your yard, in your department. So I didn't hold anything back. I didn't hold anything back. But once I got home, I started having nightmares. I would be asleep, and then that white flash would pop in my head, and I'd wake up like, I'm at home, I'm in bed. You're not in that vault. Your chest isn't on fire. And I would go into my garage and work out as my therapy. And I would do that for every day. I mean, that's still my therapy to this day. It's going to the gym. It's a release. It's a release of the anxiety, the self-doubt, the anger, because we all hold these things, but we all, try and hide those or get rid of those, mostly with negative habits. And the best one is to push yourself physically. So that's what I did. But I was still dealing with all this self-doubt, this fear, because I knew that I was going to have to go back to work, because I didn't know anything else. That's what I do. So I finally called the Employees Assistance Program, and I found a therapist, and I went, and I would go every week. When I first started going, I was going weekly, and they were helping me get over the fears, right? Focus on the positive, giving me tools to try and bring my anxiety levels down. If I was at work, try these tools out, and it helped. But what it helped more was with being open and honest. It helped me not be fearful of speaking up and using my voice, which I was already starting to do a little bit with my Instagram page, but verbally, in closer proximity to people, with my wife, especially. I mean, when I was drinking and it would cause problems, she would always bring, Daniel, this is what's going on, and this is how I feel about it. And I would just shut down, right? That was like my defense mechanism, was just shut down, don't say anything, avoid the conflict, right? But the more you avoid the conflict, the bigger it's going to get, right? Conflict avoided, conflict multiplied. And now, after these sessions, I was more open, I was more honest, and it was kind of like she didn't expect any of it. She was so used to me and the old habits that I was shut down. I wouldn't engage in conversations, and our relationship just it got way better. You know, it got way better. And then after the gym, or I mean, from the continuous gym, during my accident, I got even more muscle definition, and because I I knew that that's what I needed. You know, I needed to continue on with my process, my daily process. And people were like, "Dude, you didn't go back to drinking, did you, because of the accident and this and that?" And I already knew that was off the table. That was not even in my equation. Um, so people were asking me like, "Daniel, what are you doing?" You know, like you because when I first started going to the gym, I lost weight, but I was like skinny. You know, people were asking me if I was sick, and I go, "No, it's just daily implementation of meal prepping, tracking my food, and working out." But now it was different because I was lifting more and I was eating more, and I got a decent amount of muscle. And people were asking me, "What are you doing?" And that's kind of when it hit me, like, man, you can really help a bunch of people out. People that are having these same problems that you had went through with alcoholism, with depression, low level of self confidence, body transformation. But I didn't know how to train anybody. I didn't know how to coach. So I found a coach. I found another life coach, and he had showed me his process. I invested in myself for the first time in my life. I never really joined or bought into a program that was going to work on any sort of self development for myself. And here it was. I paid this coach, and um, at first I wasn't getting any clients. And people were like, "Dude, what are you doing? Like, you're wasting your money." But still, he was telling me how to post on Instagram, what to post, and I was getting a lot more followers, and I was getting a lot more messages. People telling me, "You're an inspiration. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for being open, for being honest." And I told one person, one family member, I said, "You know what? Even if I don't make $1 back," I said, "the feeling that I'm getting from helping these people out, it's filling my heart, you know." And that's that's what it's all about, right? Um, so I was being paid that way, and to me, it was like, this is karma giving back to you, because I would always treat people like crap, growing up, because I wasn't happy about myself. I wasn't happy that you know my parents split up. I wasn't happy about the way I was treating myself. So I would try and bring other people down to my level instead of trying to elevate myself up to theirs, right? And I elevated my life, and I started getting more clients, and I started helping people lose weight and overcome anxiety and self-doubt and low levels of confidence. Some of the best wins as a coach are, hearing one of my clients say, "Yeah, man, I got rid of all my alcohol. I haven't drank in 3 months," or my energy levels up. I have this new sense of life that I haven't had in a while. Um, those are greater than than watching the numbers on the scale drop. You're giving people their life back. You're extending their life. You're elevating their self-worth and their happiness, and that's where we're at now. I still get up, I go to work, blue collar union worker, and I coach people, and I help fulfill their lives, and that's one of the best feelings that I have. Work is very rewarding. We have power outages, and we get called out to the job, and we have to troubleshoot it and put things together. And you close the switch in, and you can hear the whole neighborhood cheering and yelling, and yeah, man, we did it. We got we That's one of the most rewarding jobs for my trade. Um, but then getting messages from people and saying, "Hey, man, dude, I don't drink anymore. I've lost 15 pounds." People that aren't even my clients, they're just following me. They mimic my process. Um, because I'll get on my Instagram page and I show my get up time. I post a workout every day. I post what I eat, at least one meal a day with the macros on there. And, I try and get on there and say some motivational stuff, whatever I'm feeling, so it's all from the heart. And, I don't hardly get any hate, but there's haters, every now and then I'll get somebody, this guy thinks he's this or he's that. And I'm like, you know what, man, if it's not for you, then you can always unfollow. Right. But, but I've got, yeah. So, I mean, it's been great. There was a time when I was at work, when I got back to work, I was going around with the safety section once they had finalized the investigation for my accident. And I was going to all the safety meetings. They would have my presentation, slideshow with photos, what went wrong. And then I would get up and speak. And I would go over that night. I would talk about where my frame of mind was, what I know I did wrong, and what helped me afterwards, right? Because in my trade, it's very macho, right? Lots of egos, and to hear somebody get up there and first of all admit, take that accountability. Yeah, I did this. This was my fault, and that's exactly what I did. I took full accountability for what happened to myself and to my partner. He got third-degree burns also. And after every meeting, I would get at least 2 people come up to me and say, "Hey, man, I appreciate it. I appreciate the bravery. Appreciate the honesty. You really got me thinking about the way I do my job." And that's what I give. That's what I give on my Instagram. Because we need more of that. We need more. Hey, man, this is what I did. This is what I used to do. This is how it made me feel. This is what I did to change it. And this is how I feel now. And I know you guys feel like that because I see it. I've lived it. But all you have to do is just have that little shift of, a little bit more confidence. Go out there and give it a shot. You might be scared at first because you're afraid of failure. And with that failure might come a sense of humiliation. But if you don't take that shot, you're missing a whole nother level of what you have inside. And I say that on my Instagram. It's like, people send me messages and they go, "Bro, you're an inspiration, but I just don't have the time, or I don't know what to do." And I go, "Well, you message me and I'll show you the way. I show you the way every day, right? Let's make you that inspiration, right? If you have a story where you change these habits or you had a body transformation, I'm pretty sure there's people in your family that need that little glimmer of hope, and they can say, yeah, if he did it, I could do it. If he was full of doubt and then he finally took the steps to create the person that he wants to be, I could do the same thing." And people ask me all the time, like, dude, like you mentioned earlier, what time do you go to bed? I go to bed after 10 o'clock. Most nights I go to bed after 10 o'clock because I go to work, and most of the days I'll work overtime. I'll come home, and I have 3 teenagers. I've been married 19 years. I have a family that I need to nurture. I have, problems that I have to hear, and I have to be a father. I have to be a husband. I have to be a counselor. And, then I still have to maybe meal prep or message people on my Instagram, take care of my clients' needs. So I'm in bed late, and then I get up early because that's the time that I have for myself is early in the morning before work. So I get up at 2:45 because that gives me enough time to get in my reading, my journaling, like a protein shake or something quick to eat before my workout, and then I go to work out. Gives me just enough time to get to work and do my best there, and then do it all over again. And people are like, dude, aren't you tired? Man, it doesn't matter. You know, it doesn't matter if you're tired. What matters is how much you show up. You know, when people need you, do you show up, or do you make excuses? You know, do you let that call go to ignore, or do you answer it? You know, and I answer every single time. You know, I answer it every single time, because there was a time where I didn't. I wouldn't answer the phone. You know, I wouldn't answer the call from above. Like, this is what you need to do. You know, you need to speak up and tell them that we can do this job safer. You know, you need to speak up and say, you know what, we're not following procedures today. We need to change our game plan here at work. And then you wouldn't have got burned, you know. So that's where I was going with this. When we were going through the safety meetings, I was going to the safety meetings, and I had this realization, like, because I would sit there and watch the presentation over and over again, and my chest would be beating out of my heart, because I'd relive all this, you know, these fears, this anxiety that night, the accident, the surgeries, you know, the sleepless nights in the hospital, the constant breathing treatments, and I would try and play all these scenarios out about, what if you would have did this, or what if you would have said that, you know, this would have never happened. And then it was just like, you know what, man, this was supposed to happen. You know, this is just a part of your timeline. This is, you needed this. And that's when all that just stopped, you know, once I just accepted it. And I realized, I'm going to use this for the best, you know. Now I always try and find the silver lining in everything. You know, whatever bad happens, if, you know, like sometimes, so I take the train to work, and sometimes I miss the train because I get out of the gym a little late, and I'll go park the car, and I see the train leaving. I start getting mad, and I'm like, man, maybe you weren't supposed to be on that train, right? Maybe you're supposed to drive to work and drive home, because you'll get home a little quicker, and maybe somebody at the house might need you for another 20 or 30 minutes. So that's what I was trying to do now, man. You know, to find the positive in all the negative. You know, how can I turn this around so I'm not dealing with the anger or the anxiety of what goes wrong? You know, and it
Wow.
just makes life easier.
You know, Daniel, what a journey. And you know, I've been quiet, and you know, you've covered a lot. I mean, you know, you covered almost every question I would have asked. But really, I want to thank you first of all for sharing and really going through it. I mean, my shows are unique in a way that you know, most people are like, why you haven't even talked yet? Well, there's nothing to talk about. You were doing the talking, and the validity and the meat of the discussion were already there. But I,
Yeah,
first of all, there's so much stuff that you've covered, so I want to just take you know, a breakdown on things, you know, just to clarify, and also just to highlight some of the things
yeah,
that happen in your journey. One, going back to your onset, like in childhood, right? There's a component there that is important, that is happening in society today, every day, and you've actually turned that point around, and I'll explain. You grew up where your parents separated, and that is something that is happening every day now. The rate of divorce is even more than ever, right? And
yeah,
which means it caused, we don't realize the damage that does. And what it does is that you'll have children who probably will rebel, will have these issues, and therefore they go and drown themselves into bad habits or bad cliques of crowds, and you know, entourage, and then ultimately that leads to, you know, a very difficult road ahead, and
yeah,
potentially a disastrous road. And you've lived that life. And by the way, and the reason I'm highlighting this, because if you are out there as a couple, and you know, we do have, you know, different shows. We just had a show about resilient relationship. You know, if you decide to be a couple, if you decide to have a relationship, well, understand that if you have children now, there is ramifications of all your actions. And by the way, I congratulate you, because as you found your mate and your wife, which, by the way, you commended, very well during this stuff. So she'll be happy. but really, you've done almost the opposite of where you were when you were a child, and you're trying to build the right family settings for your children and your wife. And I love the idea that she's, you stated something very interesting that maybe people are like, really? Stay mom home? Well, you're right. It is a lot more work than you think, folks. I mean, there's a lot of work to be done, especially if you have kids and teenagers, and you have to make things happen for them and be prepared. So whether you work at the office or you work at home, it's still work. And it's sometimes more difficult. And you gave the best example that when you stayed a week vacation there, that was a lot more work than you see at job. You know what to do. You go on, you have different tasks, you get it done. At home, he's all over the place. Drive me here, drive me there, do this, cook, that I got to go to play here. It becomes very difficult. Most people don't realize it. But the point I'm trying to make is really, if we decide to be in a relationship, let's hopefully, have the right one. Let's commit to it. Let's make it work. Now, of course, I'm not telling you what to do, folks. That's up to you. But understand that your input in this world, drives some of the futures, events. Or and literally, you got very lucky when you got pulled over with that pound of drug or weed. Drugs. I mean, we still part of it. Same category. That cop, and that's another thing I want to just highlight here is that you got lucky because you could have gotten someone that would have booked you that day, and everything else that ever happened after this today would have been a different, outcome. It would have been a whole different. So that's another thing that out there, folks. Sometimes if there's a child or there's someone that's lost. Let's cut a break to someone. Obviously, if it's extreme, if it's dangerous, it's a different story. You were just, I'm going to say this, dumb at the time. As plenty of kids, we all, at that age, we all kind of like not really in the best shape of forming our brains, right? So we do things that are really not appropriate. No, we don't think that there is a risk because we don't know better. And then, but you got lucky. You want to say something on that one? Just go for it.
Yeah. So there was actually 2 cops there that night. And when I got pulled over, and it's a deeper story, but just to cut to that part, they searched my car and they found it. And my dad, who's retired law enforcement, he always told me, just be honest. If you ever get stopped at a cop's car, just be honest. So he asked, what do you do in all this? And I said, I sell it. And he goes, I don't think you understand the severity of your answer here. He goes, transporting, intent to sell. He goes, that's a lot of jail time. Or do you just buy a bunch of weed because you don't want a nickel and dime and smoke your friend, or you party with friends? I go, that's exactly what it is. He gave me an out, and he was a vet, and the rookie that he was with, he goes, he's a drug dealer. We need to take this guy off the street. We need to book him. He needs to pay. He needs to face his consequences. And the vet was like, you know what, man? He's trying to be honest with us. He's got a clean record. He's a young kid. We're gonna let him go home that night.
You see, but that's thank you for clarifying. I mean, and by the way, not the rookie mistake. The rookie was doing it by the book. He's new, and he is excited about taking crime off the streets. So again, I'll commend his behavior. But with experience and expertise comes wisdom, and that other veteran police officer had the experience to know that better, that I don't want to have another child or young teenager actually at that man, I mean, 19, you're a young man, into the system, and then that life is destroyed. And yet, so literally today, your family, your kids, almost, I would say, owe it to him, because he could have turned everything bad upside down. You would not have the life you have today, and you're not contributing today to what you're doing right now by sharing your life, by helping others, by inspiring and motivating others. So that's an extreme, piece of the discussion that you went lightly on, but it's really a big deal for, if you're watching and listening, if you can make a difference in somebody's life and you can cut a break and you have the authority to do that. Now, ultimately, I'm not recommending that if you're someone that is bad and it's really a bad apple, not to clean them up and take care of business properly. But, use common sense, use appropriate, judgment. And I'm not, giving you an advice on how to operate out there. But, sometimes you can make a difference in somebody's life, good or bad. And you can make a difference in a future family. You can make a difference in a lot of things. I mean, I can just imagine every bad scenario that could have happened had you gone to that, jail that night. everything that happened would have been completely off and maybe worse, at that point.
Sitting in the back of that cop car in handcuffs, hearing these two officers decide my future, it was scarier than sitting in front of that ball of fire. It was scarier than waking up after those surgeries. It honestly was, because while I was sitting in the back of that cop car, I was already trying to put inside my head, what am I going to have to do to survive in prison? Because I was like, dude, you're going to face a couple of felonies. At that point, marijuana was not decriminalized. I think about that a lot, just like to your point, you know, um, my life would have been totally different, absolutely
Well,
different.
well, listen, whoever that guy was, we'll thank him here, and anyone like him who actually
Yeah,
makes a call that actually changes, somebody's life for the better. And there are people out there. There are a lot of vets, out there that understand, you know. To your point, you were not lying. You came through. You came clean, and he realized you were just trying to live that world and maybe make a buck, and that's it. And again,
that's all it was.
that's really what it was. But
Yeah,
you had, and again, it is still. This is what I started the conversation. The fact of the matter is, a relationship has progeny, and progeny decides to live and survive, and then the next thing you know, they go about bad decisions because there's no role model. There's no
yeah,
nothing. I mean, and again, you're in California. Marijuana is big, and back in the days, it was even fun, and it's easy. I mean, that's a quick way to make money as well as a teenager, especially. Well, not teenager. I mean, you're an adult man, but at that age, you're still young enough that
yeah,
you don't know better. You're just gonna make moves. So that's another thing that that I wanted to address. Then you went to an apprenticeship, or at least a career path. I guess college was not your thing, but that's the other thing. The work you do is needed. As a matter of fact, we do applaud
yes,
when there is a blackout and we have finally our electricity back. I mean, we can't. I mean, we can't have this show without electricity, right? you
yeah,
know, it's the importance. I mean, for the work you do, and it is a dangerous job. I can tell you one thing. I do not mess with electricity. I got zapped a couple of times. I mean, not high voltage, just outlet, zap, but that thing goes in like, your heart, almost like, goes crazy in a
oh
split
yeah,
second. And a second of that is more than eternity at the time, right? And so I tell my wife, and when something breaks in the house that is electric, I can't touch it. That's one thing. I mean, I shut the switches and make sure everything is
right,
done. I still are afraid of touching anything. So it is a difficult, job that you do, and it is very tough, and dangerous. And I was going to ask you, like, what do you do? But really laying down these hours, if you don't know what you're doing, even with all the equipment that you have, there's always a high risk. I mean, it is a risky job, and it pays, but again, it
yeah,
comes with a heavy burden. So I want to go also back about the idea that you've drowned yourself over the years with alcohol and all the stuff, and that wasn't a good thing. But you met someone that actually converted all that, and that was your wife, and
yes,
she really worked with you and was there for you and helped you go through this, and eventually you weirded out of it. Not only that, you gained back your personal, your health, your both of you gained everything back,
yeah,
and became a better role model for your own kids. Again, now you're giving the foundation for a new generation that has the mom and the dad in the household working together as a unit and teaming up to try to give them the best. You are providing, so on and so forth. Now that takes me to the next discussion topic, which is the risk and the electrocution, as well as the high, I guess the accident, the second accident. I know I've seen the pictures, and by the way, they look scary when you see them. I mean, if anyone has experienced a third-degree burn, they would know what a burn is. I mean, it is no picnic. As a matter of fact, people say, "Well, what do you know, Hurricane?" I did get a third-degree burn, where
oh,
my skin melted. Literally,
yeah,
just it was boiling water by mistake. I put it on my chest, and a whole piece just came off. I
wow,
mean, literally, like it just that bad. And so I can tell you, I spent the night, with patches. I was vomiting. It was just fever, the whole nine, and it was just a small burn. That's not a heavy burn or an explosion that is with high voltage. So I can tell you, it's not fun. If you burn just your finger or something, you know the difference. But When your skin comes off, it's a whole different stuff.
Yeah.
And the more skin is out, the more you have a problem. So that's pretty graphic, folks. But really, just again, for those critics out there, I know exactly what I'm talking about because I've been there. And just the thought of it, gets to your brains a little bit and get excited about it. So that was like a really brutal thing. And again, I know that when you have to review these things in your mind is like, whoa. And again, you got a couple of breaks over live, and there's a reason for that. And the reason is that you're taking all this and helping others not to fall into the same places, whether it's your original stuff, whether it's how to get healthier and physically fit and family fit, and also like how to be also responsible at work, and especially in any position, by the way, you're supposed to be accountable, responsible, but in high risk positions where there is a life threatening situations like such as yours, that's even more, more. And I admire the fact that you said that you stood up and you took accountability. You made a mistake, which can happen. I mean, you are underground. I mean, you're working with lights and things can happen. And the other thing is the first accident, you were not able, you thought you were new, novice, you could not speak up to these guys that had more experience. Yet you notice
Yeah.
something bad. Speak up. What's the worst that can happen, right? They could have said, "Shut up. You're new. You don't know what you're talking about." At least you would have
Yeah.
had the satisfaction that you made that comment, but you didn't. It burns. Like how many of us have that problem, right?
Yeah, I mean, I try to post a quote, an inspirational quote on my Instagram every day, and there's one that stuck out with me. I think it was Confucius. He said, somebody that doesn't ask a question is a fool. Somebody who asks a question is a fool for a minute. Somebody that doesn't ask a question is a fool for life.
All right. Well, I guess we just posted right now on the show. It is pretty
Yeah,
powerful. I mean,
I might
it's
have
deep.
chopped it up a little bit, but yeah.
No, but listen, message received. I mean, it is pretty deep. But you're right. I mean, you could be a fool for a minute, or you could be a fool for eternity. And
Yeah.
you can. I mean, uh, it's a powerful thing. Like you got to speak up when you can, and because by speaking up, sometimes you make a difference. You can help someone not fall into that mistake, and you don't want to wait until it's too late because it's too late. I mean, sometimes there is no coming back. I mean, you're lucky you were able to get your life back, and a couple of surgeries. And by the way, surgery is not picnic. 10 days in the hospital. And again, I'm sure you had all the different questions. Am I going to come out with this? How's going to be? What's the outcome? Am I going to lose my
Yeah.
features? I'm sure that all these
Yeah.
things, I mean, especially when you have burn to your face, I mean, that is looking at the picture. It's you would think that's. And by the way, you look good. So what they did a great job because
I'm very happy.
that picture actually would if you saw it for the first time, you'd be like, oh, this person is completely toast. I mean, it's no pun intended, but you know what I mean. It's gonna be. I gotta have some fun there, right? but really think about it, folks. Right? It is a difficult place to be, and so it is, and every single thing that you've experienced, besides the physical aspect of it, there is a mental piece of it. And I still believe that the mental hardship is harder than the physical hardship any given day. Because you can surmount, you can fix your physical stuff, but your mental state probably gets a lot more, difficult burden. And it is also sometimes harder to actually get back from, and therapy and stuff. That's the other thing that you took. You took the route of like, eventually, let me grab the ego and dump it on the dumpster, and let me go and get some of that out of my chest, which is, again, it helped because now you're back to where you were. You were able to actually get back to your. By the way, I have to get to admire your spouse because she's endured with you, and she was patient with you. I'm sure it was not picnic, but she
Yeah.
did. And
She's the
and
best.
there you go. Well, see what she deserves all the kudos here in this show.
She
And you know
does.
what? Just tell her, yeah, Hurricane said that.
I
but
will.
but she deserves it anyways. You tell her enough and that, and it's public. So yeah, that's a good thing. I mean, just imagine, right? But really, that's the other thing. Like you're supposed to stand with each other no matter what, and things can get ugly. And some people leave and just turn their back, and some people stand by
Yeah.
you all the time. And that's an important piece of your healing process. That's an important piece for you to be better. And when you see that people are not bailing on you, you tend to want to do more. Typically, if people bail on you, then you lose hope and it's over, and you're like, whatever, whatever comes, and then you get worse and probably will relapse in bad things, and that will be another outcome we don't want. So it's amazing that every single thing that happened for a reason. And then now you took it where you're on the road talking about this. You went, by the way, you said you invested in your own self to get, a life coach to teach you, how to get better and transform. And now you are making the transformation. As a matter of fact, listening to this show, I was listening to you for about 35 or 40 minutes. I forgot. It was a long, piece, but really, I can see the transformation from your picture, from your description of your life, a journey, right? From how you were to where you are today. And that in itself, just I even if even not, you don't have to say anything to anyone. Just listening to that, I can literally take a lot of that stuff and hopefully want to change my life if that I needed to change. In fact, it is. I mean, I'm telling you how it felt to me at least. And so now you take that in with your inspiration, where you're showing how you do it, with your activities, with your determination and willingness to actually move people and change them and inspire them and give them something, And you said something that's very important, like the satisfaction you had when you started doing this. It wasn't financial, but it's beyond that, because the financial will come eventually and you'll find people that are willing to invest just like you did. But really,
Hmm.
you are still helping people, and if that's your mission, that's beyond all the money. And mission is first, and then the money comes in to support the mission, which, by the way, we're not against that. Actually, you run a business, there's nothing wrong. Luckily, you
Right.
still have your daytime, so that's good too. So but the idea is that you're doing something because you're giving back. And I love what you said about, now you have a different mindset, in your approach. Positivity is your piece. You go to train, the train is gone. Well, I was not meant to be on that train. I'm just going to find the best way. And that's, again, looking at all the stuff, the positivity versus negativity. Like, what is the outcome? You find a justification of every single event and justify it to the positive, meaning that you don't think the worst case scenario. You just think like, well, I'm going to make the best out of this situation no matter what. And that's a different, higher level of thinking and processing information and living. I mean, if you can, I actually believe in that. I'm making the joke. I've made this joke many times on the shows. Is like, even that, has positivity to it, and most of us are afraid of it. We're gonna go in a different world, and hopefully, we'll be in a better place. I'm just saying that the idea is that you have to think about all the positive in every single scenario to continue
Yeah.
living better lives. The minute you start looking at the worst case scenario, the more you're going to have all the depression and anxiety and all the bad stuff, the stress, and all these things are going to affect your brain, your health, everything else, your family, and society as a whole. So we have the power to change things. You talked about excuses such as time. Oh, I don't have time. And yeah, before we got the show, we were having a discussion of like, because you and I, we were talking about like 6 a.m., show, literally. And by the
Yeah.
way, for people that thinking it is early enough, for our guest today, because that's the thing. Like, you're on a Sunday early on. I mean, that's like, dedication. And that's the thing. We always say we don't have time. We do have the time. We just how to manage our time. And yes, we have
Yeah.
more hours during the day. I get that question like, why do you do all the things to do? Well, I break it down. There's the 7 days a week. There's 24 hours. I get my sleep too. I get all the stuff, but you gotta find a way to do this. And yes, it's all good. And there is a point where you eventually gonna rest better. So, but the idea is that you have to live up to it. And if it fulfills you, then that's all that
Yeah.
matters. And
Yep.
I think you live a fully fulfilled life right now, and you are a voice, and you are not only helping your colleagues, you're also helping people in general in life. I mean, your story is everybody's, story. Every one of us had a similar, piece of this. Maybe not one part of it or the other, but we all have things in our lives that are like bumpy sometimes, whether at a youth, at a younger age or even at an old age. We all have, whether it's financial, life, family, relationships, we have some sort of a dilemma. And it's how we cope
Even
with
internal,
internal
even
sometimes
internal.
with you. Yeah. I mean,
Uh,
it is, listen, you've covered, I mean, almost every single thing that anyone would want to hear about. So now, but I do want to ask one question, and this is a technical question. What would you tell people about safety with electricity? Because that is, like you said something about why didn't you drop? Now, I've heard this before.
yeah.
When if you're caught into some sort of electrical stuff, you got to drop your center. Is that a technical process?
Sometimes you can't, with low voltage, like voltages in the house, your muscles will just seize up.
Oh,
And you ended up like you can just end up just holding on. Um, call a professional.
Okay,
Call
I
somebody
love
that's
it.
licensed. Call somebody that's trained.
There you go. So
Don't watch the YouTube
don't risk
videos and
it.
think you can handle it. No,
Don't risk it.
no.
I'll tell you, I was a kid and I remember this like yesterday. And, people may say like, well, this dude is always coming up with these third party stories. And by the way, these are real stories. And that's the thing. You don't know how much you've experienced in life until you really start talking about it. And,
Yeah,
I have witnessed, somebody that died, through electric. I didn't see him die, but I heard him scream. And then he was literally, it was my neighbor. We heard the scream, and he got electrocuted when he was taking a shower or something. And he was dead, literally. I mean, and I remember I was a kid and I saw him the same morning, and then at night they were taking him out on the stretcher,
wow.
dead. So I can tell you, I've seen that, again, and I've shared two different stories about things that I've seen in my life, and everybody's seen a lot of different things in their life. We just don't put them one on one together. But sometimes it is so electricity. It is not a picnic. It's not easy. Uh, electricity, water. I mean, all these things are dangerous when you don't know
Yeah,
how to mess with them. Don't mess with. Don't
right.
get involved. Get the experts, right? And I
Yeah,
love it. Thanks. So that's exact. But listen, this is what you do. You know it. And even you, as an expert, you can still make a mistake, and it could be very, pricey, right? So
absolutely.
so imagine someone who doesn't and thinks like, oh, I'm gonna be tough. I'm gonna man up to this and make it work.
Right,
Don't.
right.
And it's for your own safety, and that's it. So thank you for that. So I needed to ask that question because I've always wondered about like how you guys handle all that high power stuff. I mean, is it
Yeah,
even and the way it sounds is like this stuff is live. It's not even like
yeah,
you're actually operating in a live environment. It's not like you shut down the circuit and stuff because
yeah.
that's like the most crazy stuff because like you think that you shut up a grid and or a portion of it, a block or two, and you do your whip business. But it seems
Right.
like you are always operating in live mode, which is very difficult.
Yeah. A lot of times we are, especially up on the poles a whole lot. We work it live. We just wear rubber gloves. We cover everything with, protective blankets and we get in it. And that's why it's such a badass job.
Hey, listen. Well, I want to commend everyone that does the work that you do because I mean, without you guys, we nothing. Literally, I mean, think about it. We live in a society that is attached to power and electricity, and so
Yeah.
everything that we run right now, we run it through electricity. If we don't have, I mean, we're going back to the, I guess, the old age of candles and
Yeah.
and even those, I mean, you can still get a risk of fire. So there's always a risk, but it's amazing that we cannot live without the work that you do, and so thank you for doing that. And then
Appreciate
you
it.
put in your, I mean, again, you, the fire department folks, the law enforcement. I mean,
Yeah.
army, everybody that's out there that is putting their life at risk, so we can have a piece of life and enjoy it. And sometimes we take it for granted. I mean, you're
Yeah.
not the only accident that happened. I'm sure there's plenty, and people lose their lives just like we hear about it in the news sometimes. And until you actually experience it close by, you don't know how to really thank those folks. So say thank you. I mean, for the work that people
Yeah.
are doing around you. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so
You
yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
You were gonna it seemed like you were gonna touch on that earlier, but not college isn't for everybody,
Oh yeah,
and it
yeah, yeah.
wasn't for me. And having the skills of learning these trades is a very, very great way for people that don't know what to do. If the college isn't for you, seek a trade out, because once you gain a skill, you can go work anywhere because everybody's going to need these skills,
Oh,
these trades.
I want to say something, to that effect. And maybe some people will say, Hurricane, you don't know what you're talking about. But let me say this. What is a skill? Going to college just teach you a different set of skills. You
Yeah.
learn a different set of skills. It's just a different way. You went to
Yeah.
school, you went to an apprenticeship. That's as many hours and years to put in to actually become good at what you do. And I know that's you have to put thousands of hours in it, like in electricity and plumbing takes to even get a license. You can even get a licensed plumber or electricians these days without putting a lot of it takes a lot of skills to do that and time. And it's highly paid. So folks, college is just one way of finding yourself. Some people start entrepreneurship right away. Some people have to go through the standard routine of a formal college education. By the way, education here
Right.
does not mean you are not intellectual or you have, knowledge. We have plenty of knowledge access. Formal education, because that's a system, and then you have to go, because if you go to, you put your resume, they want to have that. But if you have a trade skill like yours, and then you go into a union concept, and now you're in demand. I mean, uh,
In demand.
if people don't realize how much it costs to have an electrician, try to have a problem in your home, and you'll figure out how easy, how
Yeah.
expensive that's going to be to actually just discover that it is not cheap. But you're right. So, and thank you for bringing that, because I kind of wanted to bring that point, and I skipped it for a minute. But really, it is, again, I am not. I am for education, but I'm also for anything that suits you. Meaning that
Yeah.
if your vocation, if your what you want is not really just to get to that, but you have the ability to do skills with your hands, and you have the ability. That's also passion and things that attach to it, and you like that. Fine. I mean, and we do need everybody in this world. We don't need just doctors and lawyers and stuff, because who's going to fix our cars? Who's going to put our electricity
Yeah.
in the grid? Who's going to do all the different things? I mean, we have people that are actually doing different things, and jobs that are all mandatory needed. When you have a tire problem, you don't go to a doctor, right? You got to go somewhere that's going to be able
Right.
to fix it if you can fix it, right? And I'm just a simple example, but that's the thing. Like, you got a clogged, shower or something, you might try to dabble with it, but sometimes you got to get an expert to do that. And that's the thing. Like, these are not things that, you might go to school. I know people who go to college and still do the trades because they feel better in the trade
Yeah.
world. So it's
Yeah.
not that there's nothing to be ashamed for, folks, about.
No.
And really, we have to be proud that, it is great that people have different skills, and we all kind of in this society come up with our own expertise. Some people can talk, some
Yeah.
people can do, some people can paint, some people can, build, houses. I mean, you need construction people, right? Some of these folks may not have a degree. Doesn't mean that they're
Right.
not building these skyscrapers that you, or, in the corporate world can enjoy sometimes, right? So,
Right.
when you think about it, we all need each other, and we don't need to judge anybody for what they do. We have to respect everybody's, skills, and thank them for it. And I think that's a beautiful thing. I mean,
Yeah.
to each his own. You have the ability to go one way, and that's where you find yourself. Go for it. Listen, as a parent, you have a picture that how you want your kids to be, and you see them. But at the end of the day, even that, when your kids decide on what they want, they're probably going to do a better thing than you can think about. Because if you force them in the wrong alley or wrong place, they're just not going to thrive. But if they
Or
do
if
the
you show
passion,
them, right? If you show them with your habits, like your habits or their habits, whatever you do, you know, they're
yeah,
gonna
yeah.
pick up.
Well,
You
again,
know.
that's one way, but sometimes Dad, I don't want to be like you. I want to do my own thing, and
Yeah.
you hear a lot of that, right? But
Yeah. I'm talking
sometimes
about
we're
the negative habits. But
oh,
yeah,
oh, yeah, yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. Well, that could be just as bad. Well,
Right.
what I noticed, on the contrary, sometimes people resist. If I see my dad in a bad place, sometimes I feel like I want to be the opposite, because I don't want to experience that. And you have that also. There's that school of
There's
mentality.
two
There's
ways of learning,
two ways
right?
of learning. Yeah, some people are
Yeah.
rejecting that behavior. Some people, they're just like, that's all I know, and then they like
Yeah.
that concept. So, but at the end of the day, from a vocation, from a skillful stuff, I would say that, when your kids pick whatever they prefer, they'll probably thrive better. Not what you
Yeah.
select from them. I mean,
Right.
because everybody, like, when you're a parent, you want them to have this career path, this, that, but you're forcing them into a road that they may not be happy about, and eventually they're not going to be. So
It won't be
allow them,
fulfilling.
exactly, allow them to do this stuff. Now, obviously, if they're going in the wrong path, that's your job as a parent to change that. We're not. By the way, we're not saying this. Let's be clear. We want people to
Yeah.
be thriving and successful, not go into the wrong guy. As a matter of fact, this show is about positivity, about getting better, and and really mindset and inspiration and stuff. Not the to tell you to do bad things, but it's really about you being enlightened and motivated, and really thrive and give back into society, and be a good member of society where it's positive, and you really contribute into whatever we do and whatever we need in this world.
Yeah.
So, well,
Absolutely.
we've covered a lot of grounds, dude.
Awesome.
Yeah, yeah. So we've exceeded our hour, but you've covered quite a bit. So what is a couple of things? One is, what would be your message today for our audiences, beyond what we discussed? And two is, how can people reach out to you to I guess benefit from your expertise and your life coaching?
I think first, listen to your conscience. You're being called into certain actions and certain things every day. If you have something you regret, that's what you need to change first. If you have certain regrets about yourself, that's what you need to change. And then just be kind to other people. Like you said, when I started coaching, I didn't have clients, but I knew I was making a difference, and you will be rewarded, right? In the long run, you will be rewarded, and do it without the expectation of getting something in return, right? Because if you go into it expecting to get rewarded or expecting to make a bunch of money, it's never going to come to you because you're not in it for the right reason. But with that, yeah, I mean, my Instagram is probably the best way to get a hold of me right now. Reps period and period double time. And Daniel Spencer. It's I'll be on there. I post every day. I post a workout. I post some self-talk. I post my family. I go through it. I try and highlight the positives and the negatives. Because like you said, that night I pushed the ego aside. The ego burned away. It burned with those layers of my skin that night, and I learned a whole lot about myself in that. And openness, honesty, transparency. That's what I have to offer. That's what I have to offer as a coach. That's what I have to offer as a human. And
well, these are core values and a great offering to have out there. And listen, I mean, you had a great, very interesting life, as many of us do, and I think everybody has some sort of a life that has some bumps, on the road. It's just how we handle certain things, and sometimes we have things thrown our way to make a difference in our lives. And if we take the bad and the ugly with the good, and I think there's more good that comes out of things. And again, it's all a mindset thing. And so you've taken all those bad punches and turned them into a positive. And some people can literally just drown with those and just get beat up, but you haven't, and you turned it to a way where you can benefit others as well. So thank you for doing that. Yeah. I personally, had fun with you, man, today. And I mean, you were going. I did not want to interrupt you because I really thought that you were flowing, and you've covered all the See, I have a thing about presentations. If someone is doing a full presentation, allow them to finish the presentation. Then you can ask questions. Don't interrupt. And in a way, I'm saying that at work, in training, I tend to use that, and even my show. Sometimes, we have a back and forth, but sometimes you're really in the zone. I want you to actually give it, because if I interrupt you, you might lose some of that. So it was perfect. And then I was able to break it down anyway. So, but so some people like well, you just say a word. Well, there's a picture is worth 1,000 words. I mean, you're saying a lot of stuff. That is, I don't even have to, I don't even have to. You were thinking like I wasn't talking.
Yeah, I was like, I'll just keep going if you're going to jump in. But here we go.
Yeah. But again, you were going until we got all the whole picture, the whole story, and then broke it down. And I think we've covered also that angle well. So, but yeah, I mean, I had fun.
Thank you.
Thank you for your flexibility, man, too. Because
no, thank you. I appreciate it.
No, my pleasure. Rock and roll, dude.
Let's go, guys.
I appreciate it. All right. Well, listen, Daniel, thank you so much for being with us today and for bringing your life with us and sharing it and your positivity. And folks, I hope that you've learned a thing or two, or you can potentially use the benefits of this discussion today. And certainly, if you do need, an inspiration, or hey, reach out to Daniel, and I'll post actually his Instagram link on the description of the show. So link up, follow and see where you can take it from there. That being said, I'm Hurricane H. We'll be talking soon. New day, new show, new topic, new guest. Bye for now.
There's a lot of talk all over the internet these days about the remarkable benefits of carbon-60, and baby boomers are especially excited about it. Whatever generation you're in, if you want more energy, better health, and a boost in vitality, we invite you to try Greska's Carbon-60, a stunning development in free radical destruction. Being much smaller in size than conventional antioxidants derived from fruits and vegetables, it is far more bioavailable. to quickly mend the toxin-crippled cells in your body. Greska's Carbon 60 is the only C60 product that is made without the use of undesirable solvents. The only one. Greska's Carbon 60 was developed by a brilliant NASA carbon scientist, and 95% report positive results from this Nobel Prize-winning technology in just 4 days. Visit c-60.com. That's c-60.com or call 720-600-6040.